this is Kimberlea, and Yoga Snack is our bite-sized podcast where Robbie and I serve up nourishing discussions on yoga, astrology, nourishment, and mindset.
We mix wisdom with personal experiences to serve up quick, insightful conversations that nourish your practice and add flavor to your daily life.
Ready for a quick bite of wisdom? Let's dig in.
Welcome to Yoga Snack. This week we're going to talk about the heart chakra. We're going to talk about our feeling center.
Yep. So heart chakra the Sanskrit is anahata, and it is represented by the color green. And the symbol inside of the lotus that represents this chakra are two intersecting triangles. You've seen, maybe it's known as like the Star of David.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an upward pointing triangle, and it's intersected by the downward pointing triangle. And this is a merging of the masculine and the feminine too. And so that's an interesting thing where we start to see there's this combination in a way. Anahata means unstruck. And this is something that's really, I think, beautiful and interesting, but it's almost like one of those, the Japanese koan, where it's like they ask a question that can never actually be answered, and you just ponder and ponder and ponder. But what makes a sound without two things striking together?
It's really a trick question.
That's sort of what a koan, that's what a koan is, and it's sort of mysterious, right? And so we go to like, what actually made your heart beat? What made your heart start beating? It's unstruck. Right? Like, wow. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, well, how did it? And they can, scientifically, we can try to point all these things, but there's a moment that your heart began to beat, and it wasn't beating before, and nothing rubbed together to do that. Like, there was no friction, there was nothing, there was So unstruck is this chakra, and I think it's really, it's beautiful. And here we start to move up into this really juicy, like, way of being human. Before this is all very much about us as an individual, kind of curating and honing ourselves into a form in this very tangible way. All the elements prior to this, we had earth, we had water, we had fire, but now we've moved into the element air. You can't see air, but it's vital for living, right? And we know it's all around us. And the thing that I really love about this chakra too, it's about love and kindness and compassion, forgiveness, courage, joy. But these are attributes of being a human that should be equally distributed regardless of who you are, where you've come from, what your history is. And air, if we think of it as a substance, right? And we filled the room with air, which it is right now, and we tilt the room on the side, the air will still equally distribute itself. Whereas all the other three elements prior to this, if we tilted the room, it would slide and it would not be equally distributed, right? So the earth would fall to the side of the room if we change the gravitational pull. Water would go with path of least resistance. Even fire, because the fuel that's fueling the fire would slide down, even though the fire is still sort of pointing up and moving, but it would not be equally distributed. But now we've moved into this really ethereal element, and it's everywhere all the time, and it's vital for life. And there's a lot of metaphor here that I think is really helpful, but this is our feeling center, and it's an intelligence center. And even our heart, the physical heart, has neurons inside of it. There's actually like intelligence in there, but we don't have words for this area of the body. So the Anahata chakra is where we go from this obsession with ourself to understanding the broader impact of our place in the whole world. So I always say it's like we go from this obsession of me to we. And once we merge in that we space, that we space, it's this all encompassing love. There is a book that I read a long time ago, and it related the chakras to the different sacraments inside of Christianity. And the fourth chakra was related to the sacrament of marriage, and it's merging. Right. And it doesn't have to do with like lust. That's kind of like the second and third chakra, like there's like this physical need to like procreate and reproduce and spread our seed and continue the human species. And so those lower chakras are a little bit more, we could say primal, but still necessary. There's no hierarchy here, at least in the tantric, tradition that I've studied and teach from. But there is a little bit more of this primal thing. And now when we start to move upwards into the heart chakra, we understand our placement in humanity, and we understand that there's more to being human than just having our basic needs met. And that being loved and loving are really deeply rich ways of being human. And so much so that of course there's shadow sides to it, right? We were talking before this, and I think we're going to lean into this. Some of the shadow parts of this chakra are like codependency.
Yeah. Yeah, codependency is I'd say a big thing that I've been working on when it comes to that heart chakra essence. Like being a Pisces in astrology, we have this propensity to always want to, like you said, be merged with whoever we're around,
but losing ourselves in the merging is
yes, or being over reliant on someone else's opinion. I think is another way that really I've noticed shows up. Almost valuing someone else's opinion more than your own. I think sometimes is, at least for me, it's a big almost hurdle to get over with the sort of the shadow side of this, I think.
Yeah, it's like how can love not be the answer? But it's like pure love and true love. And I think we start to really look at this idea of loving kindness and compassion, that it has less to do with romantic love, and more to do with this expansive energy. Our heart is emitting electromagnetic energy, and you can read it across the room. Like you can have an EKG across the room and you're not even strapped to it, and it can pick up the radiation of your heart. And when you are around somebody who is heart oriented, right, there's a different energy, there's a vibe, and I think what comes across is safety and inclusion in this place. And you've met Mariah. Yeah. So one of my dear longtime yoga students, she's been doing yoga with me for probably 15 years. And the whole time that I've known her, she's just this sweet, genuine, loving, kind, compassionate person who she walks in the room and the room transforms, like the energy changes. And I think when we are living truly inside of this place, it doesn't look like being nice. It has more to do with this understanding of the power of genuine kindness and care and love and concern. And that compassion can and has to, I think, when we're working, has to extend even to the people that we don't like or that we don't agree with. Think about that, like politically, like, can you extend compassion, right, to things that are really, and people that are really challenging? Like, and that's what I mean with the air element being distributed equally. like we don't just save it for the people that we agree with and we like and are close to us. And when we're really in this place in the heart chakra of working with this energy, it is about uncracking that and finding practices that help us extend that to everyone. And that's freaking hard.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to reserve that, please, just for the people I agree with and I like, but that's going to limit us in our growth, right? That's going to keep us in more of that lower system and that lower energy, because we're like reserving it just for who deserves it. Because somehow we're able to decide who deserves to have compassion and who deserves not to.
Yeah.
And man, is that something really interesting to look at. And I honestly think that we can spend our whole lifetime, studying this and studying it in ourselves. And I think that if we can just get here, like in the heart, like if we as humanity and people or individuals can like just get to our heart, I know there's 3 more above this, but if we could just get here and really work in this place, there's something so profound and transformative that it does, not only to like our relationships and outside of us, but like inside of us. I think our nervous system changes when we start to really extend compassion. But what I think is probably the first work that has to be done is like inner compassion and dealing with our inner self-talk and our demons that show up, because we're not always loving and kind to ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like reparenting ourselves and being that person that we needed when we're in places of distress or things haven't gone well, or we're upset, or we've made a mistake, right? When we make a mistake, it's like, can you still be loving and kind to yourself and accountable, right? It's not like just everything goes, but still being able to self-correct, but to apply that to ourselves. And I think that's something probably in the last 5 years has really shifted for me, is that internal dialogue. So it was always very unkind, and you need to do more, you need to be more, you're a loser, you're like you're stupid, you're not enough, you need to do more. And that, I think it's Wayne Dyer, he said, if you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice, right? So if you're going to squeeze yourself, if you're going to put yourself in a position and you're not, say orange juice is compassion, if you're an orange, and you're going to squeeze yourself and all of a sudden you squirt out apple juice or something, it's bizarre, because what's inside isn't true and authentic, what's happening, right? That inner world, like we can't offer what we don't possess.
Right.
And to be outwardly compassionate, but to have this inwardly abusive or unkind place that we're living and struggling with inside of ourselves, that's dominating, right? And because we're all going to have it.
Yeah.
But if it's dominating, I don't know that we can truly extend that same truth of kindness and love outwards, because it's tricky work, Yeah, it's tricky work.
Yeah, it's not always fun either.
Yeah.
It's not like, that inner work of the heart, like that's tender stuff. That's, you're not just like doing crunches to, you know what I mean? Like you're not,
yeah. Have you ever had, like in a yoga class, in an asana class, have you ever done any backbending or things where something has shifted or you've been brought to tears? Because that's, there's so much like somatic therapy now, and that's what the asana practice is. I know there's a lot of labels now that people need to apply to stuff like this, but the physical practice is working with somatically with the body and unleashing and moving energy through us. Have you been in tears, Robbie, ever in an asana class?
Yes. Yeah. I can't say it's something that's happened often for me, but yeah, it's happened a handful of times to where a lot of times it's like noticing um, my reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes like noticing that I'm starting into that like pattern of that negative self-talk. Like if I can't do something the way I think I
Yeah, like
should.
what an asshole.
Yeah,
What a
exactly.
jerk. Can't you get this right?
Yeah, and then it's sort of like reminding myself to come back to that feeling of like accepting where I am in that moment.
And being kind to yourself about it.
Yeah, and I think that is like that's like I said, not easy. And when you do finally like touch into that, it does sort of like break you open in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does sort of like you can't stop it. Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
trying to stop a flood
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
happening. Like,
Yeah. Or a windstorm, right?
right,
Air. Like
yeah.
we've all been like, we're like, what is knocking me over? I can't even see it.
Mm,
And the wind is like pushing down trees, and like the air is really powerful. Just like we kind of talked about water a couple weeks ago, like it's a force to be reckoned with. And there's power and you can't even see it.
mm,
And it can like beat the crap out of you and disturb you greatly, right? Without you even being able to know what's happening. And I think that's, what it's pointing towards too, is like we are now entering this very ethereal world. We're moving into the subtle. It's not tangible. We're not going to be able to hold it and document it in ways that we could with the other chakras and the other elements, because those are very much slower, more tangible elements and energies. And we can work with that almost on like a physical level with those three. But now we're entering the inner space,
mm,
and it's subtle. And I always want to be able to point to something. Like I spent a very long time, like I love the science of yoga. I love when science merges, the more empirical science merges now with some of the esoteric and the classical yoga science. Um, but that proof becomes, harder to come by when we start to enter these other realms, because we're working with subtle anatomy.
mm,
We're not working with gross anatomy now as much. And it really is about moving energy, and the energy of the heart is vital. And I mean, we've all been heartbroken, and there's a physical characteristic that comes with that. Like you're not heartbroken and you walk around with your chest puffed out and your smile on your face. And I mean, we collapse here, and we
yeah.
hold a lot of energy here, and it gets stuck sometimes. And so heart opening postures can kind of crack that open sometimes and unleash some really held hurt that we've harbored around this area of our body and our being. And so I've noticed, I've experienced in my own practice, times where it's like I'm in shavasana and I'm just like weeping. I don't even know why sometimes, but it's like I'm just, things are moving, things have moved through me
Mm,
in a really powerful way. And a lot of times it would be after like a backbending class with one of my teachers. And as a teacher, I've seen that experience. Like if we do backbending, um, people sometimes open things and get into parts of their body that have been closed off or shut down. And it's a release, and it's overwhelming sometimes, but in like a positive way,
mm,
of like moving energy back through this very vital human place that we should have included inside of the way that we're moving through our lives. So I think we're very heady in our society. And even um, tomorrow I'll teach on the heart chakra on my Insight Timer class. Um, but it's like, can you let the heart lead and let the head follow? And even in a physical practice, just like a forward bend, we tend to like kind of dive with our head first. And it's like, what does it feel like if we just move the head back a little bit and let the heart lead the way for
mm,
once? And a physical embodiment of that, it feels so different. And it pulls us inside of ourselves and helps us reset, and it helps us contemplate the heart, I think, and gives us practices then that we can start to explore, well, what does it mean to be inside of our hearts and to move from here? And this, to be really transparent, this has been my work for the last 5 years. I am not a feeling centered person. I've had to really welcome this in. And what I've noticed too is that so many people that I keep close to me, they are feeling centered people, and they're like my coaches, you know, whether they know it or not. We've talked about the Enneagram. You and I have a little bit. I'm an 8, and I'm like feeling deficient. I'm like action oriented and like feeling deficient. And I'm like, oh, my heart has to, I really have to bring that forward. And what I've found though, is the compassion that I have, not only for myself, but the compassion I'm able to extend now outwards to other people, even when they've hurt me or they've ungrounded me, or they've, you know, created havoc in my life or around the ones that I love. I can still find a way. It's a practice. Don't fool yourself. It's not something I come to naturally, but I can still find it inside of myself to find ways to be kind and hope for well-being for people, because I see sometimes what they're doing is just a form of them acting out their own suffering. It's so much easier to be pissed off at people though, right? And to like, it's so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's my nature.
In the short term anyway.
Mm-hmm. And to have practices that help us open up and include them. Like we stop putting people outside of our hearts.
It's a beautiful way to say it.
Fuck, is it hard though?
Yeah.
It's so hard, because when people don't see the world the way that I do, right? Or it seems like they are intentionally hurting other people too. It's like, how they don't deserve to be included in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest work I think that we have to do now to start to transform and to be inside of the world, and to help it transform, because I truly feel like that's the next evolution of humanity, is actually comes from our heart.
Mm-hmm. I feel like when I first took one of your classes, I was not very tapped into my heart center, and just like experiencing your heart cracked me open. Like literally, like it was like we weren't even started moving yet, and I was like, it was online, and I like sat there on my mat and cried. Like it's like just even experiencing a heart as big as yours was enough to like touch my heart and start to, I guess, open it in a way. It was.
It's been a long road though, you know, and I think when people meet me now, they think I've always been like this. And that's sometimes kind of frustrating, because it has been a long, hard road with so many hard won lessons. And I haven't done everything right, you know, and to know too that inside of not getting it right all the time and even hurting other people, that I still feel like I deserve compassion and kindness, like deep inside of myself. And I don't think I always felt that. I think there's a lot of guilt and shame and hiding and not wanting to be vulnerable. Brene Brown, a lot of her stuff has really helped crack me open and help me understand myself and how important it is to be vulnerable, and that there is that's actually a form of strength and power. That without that, we're just limited, you know. And I think at one point we talked about energy being power. And this is an untapped, powerful resource that I think we've seen as weak.
Sure.
And tuning into that and trying, and I have to like really hopefully help you guys understand is not something that was easy for me to come by. Like it took a lot of work. It took a lot of um, hard lessons, for me to really understand that there is power inside of vulnerability and kindness and softness. And this is actually where I want to spend more of my energy and time. But it takes effort. It takes so much practice. And I come back to practice, and practice for everybody can look different. There's so many ways, I think, to do this. But another thing that I think has really given me access to this place is poetry. Um, I will hear poems that just give me access to my heart. I think music has done that too. That there's some sort of feeling that happens through words and music and vibration that I get access to these larger parts of my humanity, and it kind of feeds that and fuels that, and I can sit with that and understand that better than otherwise. I just like get in my head and I just like ruminate about all the things I did wrong, or
Right, yeah.
So I think poetry and music is a really big part of accessing this part of myself, because I think it was offline for a while.
Sure.
And I think I misunderstood it. I think becoming a mom opened my heart. I don't, I remember holding my oldest daughter and realizing I don't think I'd ever experienced love until I looked at her. Like pure, genuine, true love. And then, of course, in my sort of unevolved state, it was like this sort of fierce protection that needed to come in. And that's how I expressed love, for a large part of my life. And I don't know that was always helpful, but I think learning and growing and knowing that love was so valuable. My kids all so valuable. That my love came across, maybe because I'm 8 on the Enneagram, I'm a protector.
I'm sure
that shows up, and intensity is also something that comes through, and even being a Leo, like it's kind of mapped out in so many ways, but that intensity is not the same as love.
Right.
And to be able to dial that fire down and to really simmer and experience love is such an interesting place that I get to explore, I think, the rest of my life, that I didn't just have access to originally. So much here.
Yeah.
So much here. Do you want to say more a little bit about the shadow side of like codependence?
Ooh. Well, I think, man, that one is a tough one, because so my story, we left Ohio, left in a 27-foot RV, packed everything that we wanted to keep in there. And for 7 months, that's where we lived.
Wow.
We lived in an RV, and me and my partner spent a lot of time together for 7 months. And I feel like that didn't help the codependent traits. I feel like it more solidified them. I would not change that experience for anything. Like, I think it was life-saving for me. But it did cause some damage, and that was other ways.
Sure, it reveals other layers of ourselves, right? That we have to start working on now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shoot, I thought I checked that off my list.
Right. And to have someone to bounce ideas off of, or to go through life with, is great. But I don't think being all consumed by that person is really the way. I think, especially for me, I need a lot of alone time to sort of get back to neutral. And to be in that codependent space, it's almost like you're sacrificing some of the things that you need for yourself for the sake of the union, I guess.
Yeah, that autonomy, like we still have to maintain our autonomy as who we are, right? Those lower three chakras, like we do all that work and like to become this person in order to merge with somebody else, but not merge and lose ourselves, but to merge and make something new.
Right.
And like those two triangles sort of intersecting, like they're forming a new geometrical shape that has all of these things that like come together, but alone, it's like when you come together, you make something more. My philosophy teacher, he says there's three things to like a successful relationship. And this is all sort of goddess tantric lore and stuff. And he says, the first thing I ask people when they come to me, I don't know why they come to me about, relationship issues, but they do. And he's like, the first thing I asked them, was there ever any passion? Like, he says this, did you do it like badgers in a barrel? I was like, oh, so is there like some madness, like some attraction and some chemistry, and he says, and then the other things that have to be in place is, that there has to be this thing where when you come together, you make something more. Like he says, 1 + 1 = 3. And then the third thing is autonomy, that you have to be able to step away. And those three are sort of a guiding post that I use now. I can point to so much codependence. I had a long marriage, that dissolved a while ago. But I've learned to really work on my codependent nature through my friendships. And to really, when somebody can't do something or they have to change plans, instead of like getting butthurt about it, I'm like a fan. I'm like, you need to do what's best for you. And if this is what you need, I want this for you. And that's really hard because I think my tendency before was to be like, oh, they must not like me, or there's something wrong with me. And and I made it kind of about me and all of this other stuff. Whereas now these last, 4 or 5 years, I've been able to really work on my friendships and work on my tendencies of codependency too, and understand like, that merging when we're together, it's so fun. And we have all these experiences I wouldn't have had without them present. And I also have discovered I need alone time. I need to have me doing my thing as only I can. And when we do that, then we have something to bring into a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship. I think even with my children, that if I can claim my sovereignty as a human being, I have so much to offer. And I can combine with you and we can make something more and new because of that. And I think that's another gift of working with this heart chakra. We can look at it in this big global sense of humanity, which I think we should, and looking really close, first inside of ourselves and then outside, very close proximity of how am I living this in my very close family or community or close relationships. So lots to do here. But guess what? You know what I love?
What?
Guacamole.
Oh, I do too.
Oh, I hope my viewers do. And if you all know me, you know that I have a world famous guacamole recipe, and I'm going to give it to you guys because I love you all so much, and I love guacamole, and I have converted non-guacamole lovers over to the guacamole side.
Oh, I feel like that's a tough task.
And guacamole's green, heart chakra. Okay, so here we go. You need about a 1/4 cup, maybe a little less, of really fine diced onion. Okay, I typically use like a sweet onion, but really any onion will do.
Okay.
So you dice it up very, very fine. And then you take I used to do Roma tomatoes, but now I use cherry tomatoes. Okay. I think they have a little bit more flavor. And I would say maybe like 1/2 cup of cubed tomatoes. And then you take a lemon and you squirt it over the top of the tomatoes and the onion. So the lemon is going to chemically cook the onion, which is sort of the secret sauce of all of this, because you're going to let it marinate for a little bit.
Okay.
So after I squirt the lemon over it, it's, everything is wet. So you definitely see that there's a lemon juice coating everything, but it's not sloppy. So it's not sloshing around. And I do all this by sight. So I'm sorry, I can't give you all, but that's the best recipe. Right. So you can kind of play with it. And then I add garlic salt.
Okay.
Over the top of it. And I put enough garlic salt on it that it forms like a little crust on top. Mm-hmm. So like if you shook the dish that you had those veggies in, you could just kind of see that there's a little crust over the top of it. And then I add some pepper just kind of to taste.
Yeah.
And then I let it sit. Now you have to at least have it sit for 30 minutes.
Okay.
But anywhere up to like 24 hours is amazing, because it's just marinating. Right. And I think the longer it marinates in that lemon juice, it's great. And then I will take it to a party or something, and I'll bring my avocados with me. And you never know with avocados. So I'm over generous about how many I buy, but they need to be really ripe. You need to be able to mash them when you scoop it out. You need to be able to just mash it really easily with a fork. So I prepare it fresh. And so when I'm getting ready to eat it, mm-hmm. I scoop out my avocados, and you'll be able to start to kind of see how many you need, because you'll see the vegetables distributed really evenly through the guacamole. But that is literally it. And it's the best avocado in the world. I don't use lime juice. Some people are like, lime juice. I'm like, no, lemon juice. But you play with it, make it yours, make it something you love too. But marinating your vegetables, game changer.
I have eaten this avocado, this guacamole. It's pretty tasty.
It's
yeah. You're gonna want to make this one.
Yep. Yeah, you're gonna want to make a lot, because it's amazing how quickly it goes. And it just goes. And what's wrong with guacamole? Nothing. I feel like it's good for you. There's not a darn thing in there that's not okay. And then you just figure out your favorite vehicle to bring it to your mouth. Ooh. It could be a spoon. It could be a chip. It could be on top of a burrito bowl, whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. I hope you love guacamole. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'd love to hear from you guys. We are having so much fun doing this, and we want to know what you want to learn more about. So we'll continue on our chakra journey. We'll get through them eventually. And that's all we've got for you. Thank you, guys.
See you next time.